Hi, it's Juicy Soft. This is going to be a video that'll probably be demonetized if I ever do become a partner on YouTube. I'm hoping I'm very close to my goal of 1,000 followers or subscribers. I think that's how many you need. But this is a little bit of a controversial topic. Not too much, just a little thought experiment, a little thought that I had. And that's God can't be a man or a woman. God isn't a woman. God isn't a man. I don't believe in God myself, but I believe that unless your religion specifically implies that God or gods in general have gender because they were born or something like that or whatever, and it's important that they I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that God would have a gender at all if God does exist, if God would exist, or even in the sense of God not existing and in the form of the Bible. Now, the reason why I say that is because a lot of people have ideas over our own ability to qualify as any other type of gender or things like that, where they say if you're not born a man, then you can't say you're a man. If you weren't born with a penis, you can't say you have a penis. You can't just get a penis and say you're a man. Or this, vice versa, if you weren't born a woman, blah, 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 things like that. But when it comes to God, they always say irrefutably that God's a man or God's a woman, that God has a gender. And that just doesn't make sense to me, personally. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think or what I believe. It should not have an impact of your religion or faith or what you want to believe of God's form. But I personally believe that if God were to exist, or even in the form of him not existing, that it would be, they would have no form, no gender, that the gender of that person would be completely subjective to the person viewing if they were able to view that God in general. Because in that sense of religious people who say that you can't claim, or just even non-religious people who say that God, that you can't be a gender that you're not. So we'll just say religious people that actually care about God's gender and not people who are just that don't like anybody not being the status quo. Again, these are just, you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree whether you're religious, non-religious. You don't have to look at me and be like, if you're mad, if you're upset that I'm saying things like this, I'm sorry. I can't really, if we stop every single form of conversation about everything. I mean, that's another thing about hypocrisy, is because a lot of people on both sides say that freedom of speech is tampered with all the time, that people are trying to silence them, but then they themselves also try to silence others. It's like people who say that people are too sensitive end up being just as sensitive and whiny, in my opinion, in my humble belief. Because I can see that they're saying one thing, and then the second they say something that they don't like or that they aren't comfortable with, or you make fun of something that they identify with or something that they themselves find good or whatever, they defend it and get upset in the same regards. And that just comes down to humans are offended creatures. We have opinions, and if you have an opinion, you are going to get offended. You are going to be mad. We need to drop that sense of superiority that, I never get upset about anything. I'm never triggered, or whatever you want to say. You are, and it's really dumb when you say that you're not. It's really dumb when people say that they have. I mean, because there's always going to be something, whether or not it's a joke that makes you mad, or whether or not it's a group of people that make you mad. There's going to be something that offends you. Okay? And denying that and trying to have this sense of superiority when really all you want to do is, it's like, okay, in regards so I don't lose people who are just going to see their own party and their own ideas, and then they're just going to block it out because that's what we've been teaching people to do, that it doesn't matter to listen to other people. It doesn't matter to stop and remove yourself from your belief and from yourself to hear. I mean, it can depend. It's always context. Context is the most important thing. If somebody's insulting you, you don't have to listen to them. If somebody's like just straight up like dogging you and being rude directly to you, or to a group of people that aren't necessarily doing anything wrong, they're just existing, and that's it. There's nothing else that they're doing. That you can't pinpoint to all of them. So not a group or an organization, but a group of people, and I like specifically a group of people. Anyway, that then you don't have to. But when it comes to everything else, lost my train of thought as I was running out of breath trying to go over facets. People don't want to remove themselves from that ideology. They don't want to remove themselves from that political party or that group, because hive mindery is more important than listening. And I think it comes down to the self, the ego. People want to be right because it validates themselves, or people want to seem smart, or I'm not smart. I'm not ever claiming that I am an intelligent man or that I know better than anybody else, and nor do I think that my opinions are worth more than anybody else's. And if you don't agree with me, it's fine. You don't have to. I don't want to change your mind. I don't care whether or not your mind is changed. I'm stating what I believe, and I can always change that belief. So taking it back, for instance, so I don't lose the people on one side, I can say something about this side. For instance, people who claim to be, on the side of everybody, and they claim to care about how people feel and everything like that, end up just being very negative towards everybody that doesn't automatically know everything. Like, there are people who have just conversation that want to know and they want to listen. They are asking genuine questions, but the other people, like, for instance, if you said something when you were 14 or did something dumb when you were 14, and it comes to light and everybody just dogs you. Everybody just says, "Oh, you're a piece of shit. There's no way that you changed. You're exactly the same as that person right there." And they want you to apologize because they believe that they are owed your apology, which you should always apologize anyway about any bad behavior, to show that you've recognized it and that you're like, okay, yeah, no, that was a long time ago. I'm a different person. I wouldn't do it again, but it is something that I've been thinking about, and it is something that was on my journey of discovery. And anyway, but then on the inverse, on the other side, people will say that what I just said about how people are not willing to listen, but then they themselves won't listen to other people. They won't listen to anybody that, and I'm avoiding using terms and using labels, because that's how you separate people. That's how you get people to get into their head and into their box. When you start saying generalizations, and it happens to everybody, it happens to any political ideology, it happens to anybody that believes anything, it's going to happen to you. So the further you are from the label, the further you are from that, you can remove. It's easier to remove yourself from defense. I got to defend my people. I got to defend my group. So anyway, on the other side, they'll say, and I don't even believe in sides. I believe that's just a way to control us. I believe that giving us only two options to pick from is a way to funnel our choices into two of the same type of people that are controlled by the same people. The big businesses, banks, and things like that. The governors that are controlled by big business interests. That these are conspiracy theories, so there's no proof to it. I'm not saying that there is, but this is, again, just a personal belief that we have. Like George Carlin said, you don't have representatives, you have owners. They own you. In that regard, DNC and the GOP are exactly the same. They're just controlled by different forms of the same entity, which is big business interests. And that's not to say that every single person in those parties, because there are individuals, there are people, and they regular, blue collar, white collar, doesn't matter. But I believe that the foundation itself and the politicians that they put in place are controlled by the same people to limit your ideas and limit your choices, to put you in an us versus them. You have to pick a team. Notice how we have everything's about sports. Notice how everything's about picking a side. It's always two choices. And that's because human beings are much better at considering things when there's only a limited amount of options. It's easier for us to understand things when there's only two things that you have to compare versus a whole bunch. So when you only have red versus blue, it's easier to, I don't, they're all like this and they're all like this. So when really, anyway, so people, because we're animals and because we haven't evolved to be able to handle the wide set tribe that we have now, the ability of the internet connecting us to everybody on the planet in an instant. You can talk to somebody in an instant. You can have a conversation with anybody. Well, it takes away borders. It takes away nationalized ideas of how these people act and behave, because then you realize that every single person is an individual, and whilst there is a constant cultural effect on people, where you're born does apply how you will grow up and what belief system you'll have. However, still every single person is an individual, and you need to look at that person for each one. I'm shaking my screen. Okay. Anyway, there's so much that I have to like addendums and little footnotes that I have to put in because people don't like to listen. They don't like to. I shouldn't even say people in a generalized form because then everybody gets tunnel vision. They just, and everybody wants to rebuttal. Everybody wants to. They view ideas as this absolute, and I feel like if you don't have any real power or pull, I don't have any real power or real pull. I do have a little tiny influence on an app that isn't worth anything really, and I'm trying to not get a bigger pull but get a bigger audience now. But once I have that bigger audience, I'll have to be more careful about what I say and do, because that will have an effect, because people do, when they like somebody, they are more willing to, like you can see with the like memes and things like that, when people join into something because it's part of what their circle thinks is funny, and they're willing to defend that thing, or they view it as important to them. Identity. Anyway, whatever. Back to the original point. I'm going to skip all that because I'm going to ramble on forever. I don't believe that God could be a woman or a man in any sense. If you don't believe that another person can't be a man or a woman if they weren't born as that. It just doesn't make sense to me that you can label God as this form without the penis if you think that nobody else can do that. If you're born of flesh, you can't do that. But God, he can do whatever he wants. And I mean, yeah, a God could, but even then, even in that sense, get rid of that. Don't think, oh well, now he's with them. Now I have to defend my whatever. Shut up. Just take a moment. Take a moment. Remove all of that and just look at God itself. God, if they existed, or even if it doesn't exist, wouldn't have a form that would be close to humans. Even if people were made in God's image, whatever, still, it wouldn't be a man or a woman. It would be a being of power, and that's it. There wouldn't be any gender. To imply that God has a gender outside of that would be that God would have been born. And even though in the Bible it says God existed. Now, I only can reference the Bible. I'm only referencing the Bible. It's the only book that I've honestly read from religious books. I've read parts of the Quran and parts of the Torah and parts of other religious texts, but when it comes down to it, I really only know Christianity, and that's because it's been around me. I was a Christian when I was a kid, but my faith and I have split, whatever. So God becomes this exception to that rule, to that idea. And this is just a thought. This is just a thought experiment for you. That if you are religious and God's gender is important to you, and you say God is a man, or God is a woman, or that God has any gender whatsoever, and then you go around saying that other people can't do that, that yourself, you're lining yourself up for a fallacy right there. But again, I'm not an intelligent man. There might be reasons that you personally believe that, and that's fine. That's completely fine. But I don't know. I personally think that if somebody isn't hurting me and their lifestyle, not lifestyle choices, I'm saying just them, their being, them themselves, because it's not a choice. It's not a choice. It doesn't affect me, and it isn't, arguably morally wrong. Like, it isn't something that directly impacts people. It doesn't. If it's something that just makes people uncomfortable, and that's it. It's not something that is wrong, and it's not something that hurts people. It's not something that's violent. It's not something that, I don't know. I'm trying to explain this in the best way I can. Then it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me, and that's their life, and it's none of my business what they do with their own body. And I won't get into any other topic on that, about bodies and their rights and something like that, because that is a completely polarizing issue, because that also comes down to religious beliefs versus practical beliefs and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not a politician. I'm not somebody that has any pull or any expertise in the situation, and all of these should be just opinions and not me trying to state fact like I know. And that's another thing. People want to believe that their ideas are fact. On every single person wants to believe that their perception of the world is fact, that their understanding of the world is how things are, and that's not true. No matter what you believe, no matter what form you think, that is not what I mean. There are facts, there are concrete things that we can prove, but then there are things that are completely based in your perception of the world that can only be explained through your eyes and how you see them, and that's it. There are things that are abstract. There are facts like you are able to stand upright. There are facts like the sun is in the sun is in space. The sun's there. You can see the sun even if you don't believe that space exists for some reason. The sun is still there. You can say, "Oh, no, that's the sun," because we've all accepted that's the sun. But then there are things like morality questions and philosophy and everything like that, where it takes a little bit more time and you have to be willing to listen. Now, I'm not saying that you have to listen to other people as well, but you shouldn't try to argue with people. That there's a lot of people that like to argue every idea instead of just defending their own point of view and stating why they believe that point of view, and that's it. You know what I mean? There are people that make a habit of looking at and right, left, whatever. There are people that make a habit of searching for people to try to convince, because it's so important to their identity. It's so important to their sense of self to believe the things they do that it becomes jarring and uncomfortable to see anybody with any other form of view, any other person with any other kind of belief. And every single person's a hypocrite because they all say that the other side doesn't do it, or this other side does it, and they don't. And you all do. Humans are creatures of habit. There's so much parallelism, whatever. People doing the same exact thing but in different ways on every side, on every form, in every place. You know? So, I guess as I could say, it's like that NPC meme, which it's funny if you think of the NPC meme as anybody that follows any kind of political ideology and just repeats whatever the person above them says as an NPC, as somebody blah, 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 blah. But if you are looking at that meme and saying, haha, yeah, they do that, we never do that, then you're missing the point of that meme. I know it was started by a post on 4chan about the other side that was different from them, and they just viewed that side as NPCs or whatever, and because they're stupid. But then they don't. It's funny because people in any kind of form of believe anybody that isn't part of that belief is dumb and stupid in every facet, and there's no merit to anybody, and that they themselves are immune to propaganda, to efforts to control their mind, to brainwashing and whatnot, to gunning, I guess I'll call it, where people point an idea, or they have somebody holding them and telling them where they're allowed to shoot and where they're allowed to, you're nothing but an object for the person controlling you to aim and hit anybody with. So, like, knee-jerk reactions, I'll say. For instance, I'll say this. Anytime there's a movie and that movie has any kind of anything in it that somebody doesn't agree with or doesn't find comfortable, they immediately discredit it and they immediately don't like it off the bat. Like, off the bat. They haven't seen it, they haven't looked at it, they haven't formed any idea of it. And then there is the hating of a movie just because it seems like to your perception of the world, that it's this. Again, everything is black, not black and white. There's grays in every area, and you have to be able to. It's always context. Everything singularly matters. You have to look at every single aspect of every single thing. I personally don't believe that anybody is an idiot. I do believe they're idiots. I do believe that there are people that are just dumb and unable to look at other people. But I believe that there's different forms of intelligence. That there's practical intelligence, there's artistic intelligence, there's social intelligence, and every single person can have a number of these intelligences. Or all of them, for instance. For some, they're very well a Renaissance person. But I do believe that there are people that don't have any of these. They're just inept, and they are the easiest to control, and it's everywhere. It's every party, every belief, every country. There's just these people that are nothing more than followers. But when you call somebody a sheep, even while you stand next to the herder, being herded into just a different enclosure, just into a different spot, you know what I mean? You can't say that you are immune to propaganda. You have to be vigilant. You have to believe. You have to constantly question yourself, and you have to constantly look past your party. If you see somebody in your party, don't defend them. I don't defend a single president. Not a single president. I don't ever view any president in high regard, because that's a person. I don't care what party they're part of. I don't give a shit. If they're doing something wrong at all, then you gotta address that. I think every president has blood on his hands, and it's I also think it's very impossible to be a president, especially nowadays, to not get blood on your hands. Well, maybe not especially nowadays, but I think it's just hard in general as president to not get blood on your hands. There's decisions that you have to make, and people will get hurt. It's a very tough job. The same way I think that all members of Congress have blood on their hands. The way that a lot of people have blood on their hands, and you can't put everybody into this box of perfection that they can do no wrong just because they believe the same things you do. People do wrong all the time. And defending your party and defending your belief. I don't know how this got onto this topic, but I ramble, like I said, about God and all that. It started off as just my thought process about how God couldn't be, a gender, and I wasn't trying to make some political statement. I wasn't trying to be like, haha, gotcha, like a gotcha moment. I was just trying to say that I don't see how you can, that doesn't make sense to me personally, and I would probably just believe that God wouldn't have a form at that point, that God wouldn't be a man or a woman, and it would be completely subjective to you, but whatever, it doesn't even matter. I'm just spitballing. Whatever. That's it. So if you are upset about anything I've said, don't try to argue with me. I'm not going to argue about this. I don't think that I'm right. I don't think that I have more answers than anybody else. I don't think that I'm smarter than anybody else. These are just ideas. And you need to separate yourself from whatever ideology you hold, regardless of what it is, and take a step back. You will always be controlled if you can only see through one of the shades of red or blue or yellow, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I will leave with this. This is something that I do believe I'm right on. We need to stop having a two-party system in America, at least. Just in America. I believe it's making us controlled, that they can limit our choices and limit our options, just like how the Republican platform will push out less likable Republican candidates that are beneficial to the middle class man. The same way the DNC will push out any politician that isn't part of the status quo. The same way they'll do it for more likable candidates. It's all a game of politics. Let's just get our party in instead of let's get a person in there. Let's get somebody that matters in there. Let's get somebody that whatever, So we need to start going to a third party system. We need to start giving third parties a platform on debates, on political standings. I think that the people should be represented by the people that they choose, and there's just not enough. It's impossible to do if you only have two choices when there is much more complex issues that you need to, I'm an independent. I have a political party that I made for myself just so I can talk about it with people to, round down my ideas and make it more digestible. However, I still classify myself as an independent, and because I believe that signing solely to a party can corrupt your mind and make you only see what the people above you want you to see, or your friend group. It's like how people who are centrists sometimes aren't really centrist. They are either Republican or a Democrat, but they have a circle of friends that they'd like to keep, or they have the idea in their head. There's this image that they want to hold on to, and they're just afraid of just coming out and saying that they're this, so they take the easy road and sit back. Oh, just saying some, and sit there and be like, oh, no, I'm a centrist. What are you talking about? What? Anyway, I tried my best to stay away from giving labels and everything, and if this makes me mad, I can't change that. I genuinely can't. If you don't like me, that's fine. That's fine. 8 billion people on the planet. I can't make not everybody's going to agree with this. There are going to be people who are going to see this, and even though I tried to make it as inclusive and non-insulting as possible, where I don't pick a side, where I just try to point out as much as I can from every side, and I don't use labels and I don't use generalizations, because that makes people immediately go into their defense. They sit back and they're like, what? But anyway, you might think I'm an idiot. That's fine. I don't care about being stupid. I'm fine with it. If I'm dumb, I'm dumb. And I'd rather be dumb but willing to question. I'd rather be an idiot and be willing to reflect than believe that I am something that I'm not. So anyway, y'all have a good day. Sorry for this video. It's not my usual style, but I have a lot of ideas and I can't always keep them at bay. So y'all have a good day.